You feel it long before you understand it. The strange disappearances, the closed doors, the people who once swore they needed you suddenly becoming distant, cold, unreachable. And every time it happens, you ask yourself the same question. Why does fate keep taking everything from me? But what if it was never punishment? What if your soul was simply too awake to keep carrying what was never truly yours? An empath does not lose people the way others do. An empath absorbs them, carries them, becomes a temporary home for their wounds. And that is why letting go feels less like separation and more like tearing away pieces of your own spirit. Carl Jung once wrote that what remains unconscious controls your life, and you call it fate. And maybe this is why empaths keep losing almost everything. Because fate is trying to force you into consciousness, into truth, into yourself. You were taught that love means endurance, that loyalty means sacrifice, that if you could just love harder, heal deeper, stay softer, people would finally stay. But empaths often become addicted to emotional survival stories. You confuse chaos with destiny. You mistake emotional exhaustion for connection. You stay in places where your nervous system is quietly begging to escape. And fate notices. That is why your life changes suddenly. Without warning, a relationship collapses, a friendship fades, a dream dissolves in your hands just when you thought it was finally becoming real. Not because the universe hates you, but because your soul can no longer breathe inside illusions. The empath's deepest wound is not abandonment. It is attachment to what drains them. You keep trying to save what has already expired. You revisit dead conversations in your mind. You romanticize old pain because at least it feels familiar. And fate keeps whispering the same terrifying lesson. If it costs your soul, it is too expensive. Most people do not understand the spiritual exhaustion empaths carry. You walk through rooms and unconsciously collect emotions that were never yours. You sense hidden resentment, silent sadness, unspoken fear. Over time, you become emotionally overcrowded. And fate begins removing things because your inner world has become too heavy to survive. Sometimes the loss itself is the rescue. That is the part nobody tells you. The relationship that shattered you may have also saved your future. The rejection that humiliated you may have protected your spirit from a path that would have destroyed your identity. The loneliness you fear may actually be the first moment your soul has had room to speak. Empaths fear emptiness because emptiness feels like death. But Jung believed transformation begins in the dark. Not in comfort, not in certainty, in the collapse. And maybe that is why your life keeps falling apart in cycles. Because every version of you built on self-abandonment must eventually disappear. Fate forces empaths to let go because empaths cling to emotional meaning long after the lesson is over. You hold on to memories because you can still feel the energy inside them. But energy is not always destiny. Some souls enter your life only to awaken you, not to stay. This is why empaths often experience sudden awakenings after devastating endings. One day you stop begging, stop chasing, stop explaining your heart to people determined to misunderstand it. And in that silence, something ancient returns. Your intuition. You begin realizing how many times your body warned you before your mind accepted the truth. How many red flags you translated into compassion. How many betrayals you sensed months before they happened. Empaths are not weak because they feel deeply. They suffer because they ignore what they feel. Fate becomes harsher when intuition is repeatedly abandoned. So the universe removes distractions, people, comforts, identities, attachments, not to empty you, but to reveal what still remains when everything false is gone. And that is the terrifying beauty of the empath's path. You were never meant to keep everything. You were meant to discover who you are without carrying everyone else. One day you will look back at the things you cried over losing and realize they were chains disguised as love. And maybe for the first time in your life, you will stop asking why fate took so much from you. Because you will finally understand it was trying to give you back yourself. There comes a moment in an empath's life when even hope becomes exhausting. Not because you stopped believing in people, but because you kept believing after every warning sign told you not to. You saw the inconsistency. You felt the distance. You noticed the coldness hidden behind beautiful words. But you stayed, because empaths do not only see potential in people. You feel the pain hiding underneath their masks. And that becomes your prison. You keep trying to love people into becoming who they promised they were. Meanwhile, fate quietly watches you abandon yourself again and again. This is why certain endings arrive like storms. Sudden, merciless, irreversible, because gentle lessons did not work. The empath often learns through emotional earthquakes, not because you are cursed, but because your soul is too intuitive to keep living half awake. There are losses that are not losses at all, only awakenings disguised as grief. But at first, you cannot see it. At first, it feels like your entire inner world has collapsed. You replay memories like sacred rituals. You search for hidden meanings in silence. You wonder how someone who once felt like home could suddenly feel unreachable. Yet this is where the deepest transformation begins. Because empaths are dangerous when they finally stop idealizing suffering. For most of your life, you believed pain made love more meaningful. That staying through emotional chaos proved the depth of your heart. You learned to survive emotional hunger by calling it devotion. And fate keeps tearing things away until you understand this one brutal truth. Love should not require self-erasure. Carl Jung believed that the shadow appears when parts of yourself remain unseen. And many empaths carry a hidden shadow no one talks about. The need to be needed. You become addicted to rescuing broken souls because it gives your sensitivity purpose. You feel valuable when someone depends on you emotionally. So fate removes people not only to free you from them, but to free you from the identity built around saving them. That is why solitude becomes unavoidable. Not ordinary loneliness, but spiritual isolation. The kind where nobody truly understands what is happening inside you. Where your old life no longer fits, but your new life has not fully appeared yet. This is the empath's sacred in-between, and it feels unbearable. You start losing interest in conversations that once entertained you. Crowded rooms suddenly drain you. Certain people begin feeling emotionally loud even when they say nothing. Your nervous system becomes allergic to performance, manipulation, emotional games, because your soul is evolving beyond survival. And evolution always costs something. The painful truth is that fate does not remove random things from an empath's life. It targets attachments that keep your spirit asleep. Sometimes you lose relationships because you confused emotional intensity with soul connection. Sometimes you lose opportunities because they were feeding your ego while starving your spirit. Sometimes you lose entire identities because they were created only to earn love from wounded people. And every loss whispers the same question. Who are you when there is nothing left to prove? That question terrifies empaths. Because deep down, many of you were loved more for what you gave than for who you truly were. So you learned to overextend, over-explain, over-care. You became emotionally available to everyone except yourself. But fate has a strange way of correcting imbalance. Eventually, the empath becomes too tired to keep betraying their own soul. That is when your energy changes. You stop chasing closure. You stop forcing connections. You stop shrinking yourself to keep peace with people who secretly enjoyed your confusion. And suddenly, your life becomes quieter. At first, the silence feels empty. Then it begins to feel safe. You realize peace was always unfamiliar because chaos had become emotionally normal to you. This is why many empaths mistake calmness for boredom. Healthy love feels strange when your nervous system was trained on unpredictability. But fate keeps removing unstable people until your body remembers what safety feels like. Not butterflies, not obsession, not emotional addiction, safety. And slowly, you begin understanding something most people never realize. The universe was never destroying your life. It was dismantling the version of you that survived through suffering. The empath's greatest transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "Why did I lose them?" and start asking, "Why did I believe I had to lose myself to keep them?" There is a grief empaths rarely speak about. Not the grief of losing people, but the grief of realizing how often you abandoned yourself just to avoid being abandoned by others. That realization changes everything. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it anymore. You begin remembering every moment your intuition whispered, "Leave," and you stayed. Every time your body felt heavy around someone, but your heart kept making excuses for them. Every moment you confused empathy with emotional responsibility. And suddenly, your past looks different. You start understanding why fate had to intervene. Empaths often stay loyal to chapters that already ended spiritually. You keep watering dead gardens because your heart remembers how beautiful they once looked. But fate is not sentimental. It cares more about your evolution than your attachments. That is why certain connections collapse no matter how hard you try to save them. You cannot force alignment with people who only knew how to meet the wounded version of you. And this becomes terrifying once you begin healing, because healing changes your energy. Your boundaries become stronger. Your silence becomes heavier. Your presence stops begging for acceptance. And suddenly, people who loved your softness begin resisting your strength. Some souls were comfortable only when you were overgiving, only when you doubted yourself, only when you carried the emotional weight of the entire relationship alone. The moment you stop doing that, the connection begins to crack. Not every relationship survives your awakening. That truth hurts empaths deeply because you see the good in people even after they hurt you. You remember their pain, their childhood wounds, their hidden sadness. You understand why they became who they are. But understanding someone's pain does not mean you are meant to stay inside it. This is one of the hardest spiritual lessons fate teaches empaths. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Carl Jung believed that people do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. And many empaths spend years avoiding their own darkness by focusing on everyone else's healing instead. You become the listener, the rescuer, the emotional sanctuary. But who listens to the empath? Who notices the exhaustion behind your smile? Who realizes your constant kindness is sometimes survival, not happiness? Eventually, fate isolates you long enough for you to face the parts of yourself you kept escaping through other people. That isolation can feel brutal. The phone becomes quieter. The invitations disappear. The emotional intensity you once lived inside suddenly vanishes. And in that silence, you meet someone unfamiliar. Yourself. Not the version created to please others. Not the version addicted to fixing broken souls. Not the version terrified of disappointing everyone. The real you. And at first, the real you feels empty because you spent so many years becoming what others needed. Empaths are shapeshifters emotionally. You adapt unconsciously. You absorb moods, desires, energies. Sometimes you lose your identity without even noticing. That is why fate removes almost everything. Because you cannot hear your own soul while carrying the emotional noise of everyone around you. The universe begins stripping away distractions one by one. False relationships, forced identities, old dreams rooted in validation instead of truth. Not to punish you, to purify you, but purification feels painful before it feels peaceful. There are nights when empaths feel completely lost during this transformation. You wonder if you are becoming cold, detached, different. You miss who you used to be, even though that version of you was suffering constantly. Growth confuses the nervous system before it frees the soul. And this is where many empaths try to return to old patterns. Back to unavailable people. Back to emotional chaos. Back to relationships where love had to be earned through sacrifice. Because the familiar feels safer than the unknown. But fate keeps closing those doors. Not because you are rejected, but because your soul has already outgrown what your heart still struggles to release. One day, you will understand why certain endings refused to reverse themselves. Why certain people never came back. Why some dreams collapsed right before they happened. They were connected to a version of you that no longer exists. And the deeper your awakening becomes, the less you mourn what left. Because you finally realize something powerful. The empath's destiny was never to carry the world. It was to stop abandoning themselves for it. At some point, the empath stops fighting fate. Not because the pain disappears, But because you finally understand resistance was creating even more suffering, you begin noticing a strange pattern in your life. Every person you begged to keep eventually became a lesson. Every attachment you thought would destroy you to lose somehow led you closer to yourself. Every collapse carried hidden guidance inside it. And slowly, your relationship with loss changes. You stop seeing endings as punishment. You begin seeing them as redirection. That is when the empath enters a different stage of awakening. You no longer chase people who withdraw from you. You no longer over-explain your heart to emotionally unavailable souls. You stop forcing conversations, forcing intimacy, forcing belonging. Because something inside you finally understands. What is truly aligned does not require you to betray yourself to keep it. This realization feels both peaceful and heartbreaking. Peaceful because your soul becomes lighter. Heartbreaking because you see how many years you spent trying to earn what should have been given naturally. Empaths often carry ancient emotional fatigue, not only from this life, but from years of becoming a safe place for everyone except themselves. You were the comfort, the healer, the understanding one, the person who stayed after everyone else left. But deep inside, many empaths secretly hoped someone would one day love them with the same depth they offered others. And fate had to teach you the hardest lesson of all. You cannot keep pouring from an abandoned soul. This is why your awakening required separation, distance, silence, loss, because your spirit needed to learn the difference between loving and disappearing inside someone else. Carl Jung believed that individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are. And for empaths, that journey often begins only after everything false falls away. After the masks, after the attachments, after the emotional addictions disguised as love. Only then do you finally hear your own inner voice clearly. And it sounds nothing like fear. It sounds calm. The healed empath no longer needs to chase intensity to feel connection. You stop romanticizing suffering. You stop mistaking emotional turbulence for destiny. You stop believing your worth depends on how much pain you can endure for others. Instead, you become selective with your energy. Not cold, not cruel, just conscious. You realize access to your heart is sacred. Your empathy is sacred. Your nervous system is sacred. And suddenly, life becomes simpler. The universe no longer needs to force dramatic endings because you finally listen to your intuition before destruction arrives. You recognize misalignment earlier. You leave situations that dishonor your spirit instead of waiting to be shattered by them. That is the final lesson fate was always trying to teach you. Not how to lose everything, but how to stop losing yourself. And maybe this is why empaths go through so many painful separations in life. Not because they are doomed to suffer, but because their souls are being refined. Every ending removes another illusion. Every heartbreak exposes another unconscious wound. Every loss strips away another false identity. Until eventually, there is nothing left but truth. And truth feels strangely quiet after a lifetime of emotional chaos. One day, you will wake up and realize the pain no longer owns you. The memories no longer control you. The people you once thought you could not survive without no longer define your worth. You will sit with yourself in silence. And for the first time, the silence will not feel empty. It will feel like freedom, because fate was never trying to take your life away from you. It was trying to return your soul to you all along. And maybe somewhere in this story, you recognized a part of yourself you've been trying to silence for a long time. If this message found you at the right moment, share in the comments what lesson fate has been trying to teach you lately. And if you feel drawn to these deeper conversations about empaths, psychology, and awakening, subscribe and continue this journey with us. Thank you for watching.